Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. 15 people shot over the last 24 hours in 3 parishes. TVJ workers receives commitment over contract and pay issues. And later in sports, world champion Chilean Fraser Price and Shericka Jackson express confidence ahead of Diamond League finals tomorrow. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. 5 people were shot on Red Ground Road in Westmoreland this morning, adding to the current spate of murders across the island. Of the 5 shot, 2 have succumbed to their injuries. Information to our newsroom is that the group of men were at a bar on Red Ground Road, otherwise known as Fire Station Road, about 9 o'clock, when men armed with guns pounced on them and opened gunfire. When the shooting subsided, the men were seen suffering from bullet wounds. Now, up to news time, the police were still on the scene. However, they have not released the identities of the dead men and have not established a motive for the shooting. The National Security Minister, in the meantime, has addressed the spate of mass shootings across Jamaica. In the last 24 hours alone, 15 people have been shot in 3 separate incidents in Westmoreland, St. Andrew and Kingston. In each of those attacks, at least 3 people were shot.
As the police become more effective at intercepting the killers, however, we find that they are changing their tactics and in fact are becoming far more brutal. And we'll see from the statistics that while we have seen a reduction in the number of shootings, there's actually an increase in homicides because they have adopted practices such as drive-by shooting at crowds, and while they're seeking a single victim, they have 3, 4, 5 people who are hurt, literally, as collateral damage to criminal activity.
Dr. Chang, however, stressed that the security forces are working hard to contain the gun attacks in the country by trying to rid the streets of illegal weapons.
The security forces have seized upwards of 625 firearms annually, and based on the firearms seized so far this year, they are well on course to surpass the 703 firearms that were seized in 2021.
Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson says the police are aware of a growing concern about safety in schools. He says while he recognizes that discipline in school is an issue for the school's administration, there are 211 trained resource officers who provide support to schools across the island. He says they've put special focus on schools that are more prone to violence.
In addition to our efforts, we want the parents and community to participating in ensuring that our children are safe. We must have the conversation with them about conflict resolution. In terms of major crimes, at the end of August, there was a 2.7% increase in major crimes over last year. Murder was up by 6.1%, or 58 more when compared with the corresponding period last year. The majority of murders, that is 71%, were gang-related, while another 15% were attributed to interpersonal conflicts.
Commissioner Anderson also says murders that result from interpersonal conflicts are often cleared quickly because suspects are already known.
There is a 6% decline in shootings, and rapes have decreased by 16%. However, robberies are up by 15% and break-ins are up by 7.8%. As indicated in our last press briefing, we were in the process of acquiring additional mobility assets and training additional quick response motorcyclists in response to the robberies and break-ins. These initiatives are just about coming on stream, and as the process continues, we are also employing technology and intelligence to target known perpetrators. Now, it's important to note that analysis of the data shows robberies are down 22%, whilst break-ins are down 24% from pre-COVID levels. In formulating our strategies, it's important that we look at the pre-COVID circumstances and not just the last 2 years where movement restrictions were in force. Our initiatives now are designed to ensure we do not get back to even the 2020 levels, but continue the downward trend.
4 children of Canadian nationality who were reported missing are now in the custody of the police. The children were found in a community in Otrier, St. Anne earlier this morning. Head of the St. Anne Police, Superintendent David White, says the children's ages range from 3 to 12 years. He further notes that the police are on location along with representatives of the Children's Services Division. Now, we will have more details on this story in subsequent newscasts. The Minister of Health has announced that the monkeypox vaccine will only be given to priority groups in the initial stages of the local rollout. They will include the sexual partners of confirmed monkeypox cases or healthcare workers who were not wearing protective gear when they came into contact with a confirmed case. The decision was taken by Cabinet due to the challenges involved in sourcing the vaccine.
The vaccine, once in country, will be administered to only persons who come into close contact with a diagnosed patient, with someone who contracted monkeypox. So persons based on the contact tracing who would have been exposed to an individual with the virus, which is why it's called post-exposure prophylaxis, as opposed to pre-exposure.
Dr. Tufton told Parliament Tuesday that Jamaica should get a very small supply of the monkeypox vaccines at the end of September. But after that, the country is unlikely to get additional doses of the drug before 2023.
The manufacturers of the smallpox vaccine that has been shown to be effective for protecting persons from monkeypox have supplied limited amounts to the market, and as such, only approximately 3,500 doses of the vaccine have been promised to us. We can't get it to buy. It's not on the open market. It is to be noted that we may not receive this amount as the supply of the vaccine is in high demand with very limited supply. And, we're in a line, basically. Other countries, particularly more powerful developed countries, tend to be ahead of us, as has been the case in the past.
Now, 45 persons are currently in quarantine after being identified as close contacts of confirmed cases. So far, Jamaica has recorded 7 confirmed monkeypox cases.
Of engagement, we normally issue the quarantine orders when persons are released from hospital to go home and stay put in a safe space. Given the first case of the diagnosed case of the individual leaving without authorization from the Jamaican hospital, we have adjusted those rules where the quarantine order is imposed immediately in order to just be absolutely certain that persons will comply.
Jamaica could soon see its first Center of Excellence with special focus on early childhood education. More in this report.
Despite not much funds being spent on early childhood education island-wide, one member of parliament has pledged to put emphasis on the early stages of development in the nation's children. MP for East Central St. James Edmund Bartlett says this renewed focus comes as the government tries to curb the country's high homicide rate. According to statistics from the Jamaica Constabulary Force, up to September 1, there were 1,018 murders. St. James recorded the majority of the cases with 138. Mr. Bartlett says those figures are troubling.
So where have we failed? I think where we have not done enough is with early childhood. Because at the early childhood level, that's the start. That's the cradle of everything. That's how, we begin to form ideas, begin to develop, practices and absorb environmental, outcomes and begin to fashion who we become and who we are.
He says he's seeking to make that change starting within his constituency.
My next 25 years in terms of the program, God will help me to share some of that, maybe not all of it, but some, will be dedicated to building the early childhood elements.
This will be done through the establishment of the second Center of Excellence in the island, with special focus on early childhood education. The East Central St. James MP says he's hoping to raise $1 million in a bid to start the project.
I've set up a team already to look at it and to begin to engage partners to raise the necessary resources required for it. So the Shops of Rose Oil is going to be involved in the program, and we will continue to have the kitty. So hopefully contributions can be made that, recognizing that this is now for a specific project, that we can watch its evolution and participate in the conclusion of its activities.
He was speaking at the handing over of a check valued at $100,000 to the John Rawlings Success Primary School in his constituency recently. Cody Ann Barrett for TVJ News.
Employees of the National Council on Technical and Vocational Education and Training, NCTVET, had a meeting with the Education Minister Favourable Williams this morning to address their grouses. Our news team was informed that following the meeting, some commitments were made. When we contacted the National Workers Union delegate at the NCTVET, Earl Samuels, he told us that the workers would be briefed on the outcome of the meeting, and our newsroom would be updated later on the decision of the staff. There is a renewed call for assistance to help farmers bolster the country's food security. It comes from members of Parliament this time who want greater focus to be put on farm roads. Details in this report. As the country moves to increase its agricultural production capacity, at least 2 members of Parliament are calling for increased assistance for farmers within their constituency. The call comes as the government seeks to become self-sufficient in a number of agricultural crops. 2 of those crops so far are Irish potatoes and onions. But while the farmers say they are up to the task, there's an urgent appeal for the roads in farming communities to be fixed.
Minister, I am calling on you to speak to the Minister of Finance. The farmers are suffering from the bad road. We congratulate the government about the highways that they're doing, but the roads to carry to a yard, them bad. Can't bad no more.
Mr. Spence, you said that rather feel look good. Don't rather feel look good. And in order for rather to look good, the farmers have to look good and feel good.
St. Mary Western Member of Parliament Robert Montague is also calling for increased funding for farmers within the Guys Hill area. Guys Hill borders 3 constituencies, namely St. Mary Western, St. Anne Southeastern and St. Catherine Northeastern.
The farmers in this belt has never failed Jamaica because we produce over 60% of the Irish potato crop in the country in this Guys Hill belt. And we are committed in doing more. And Minister, we're not going to let you down.
In the meantime, an assurance from the Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA, that there will be improvements in the sector. Winston Simpson is the acting CEO of RADA.
We will seek to forge a better working relationship with our purveyors, our buyers. And we will arrange farm tours and validation with our input suppliers and our buyers. And we will build that relationship. Minister, we will build a relationship that you will see a new paradigm in the sector. And let me tell you, I'm committing the RADA staff now to give their 100+ support to make sure this program works. You are the bedrock to make things happen.
The individuals were speaking at the official launch of the Irish Potato and Onion Program in Guys Hill recently. According to the Agriculture Ministry, 53 hectares of Irish potato have already been planted in Guys Hill, Cascade in St. Anne, Mavis Bank in St. Andrew, and parts of Manchester. And it's now time for the Business Minute. Here's Cody and Barrett.
Telecommunications provider Digicel this month received a credit rating downgrade from respected rating agency Fitch. The entity has cast doubt on the global company's ability to find cash from savings or operations to pay out $925 million in bonds that become due in less than 6 months. The telecoms group told bondholders in recent weeks that its earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization dipped 2% to $241 million in the 3 months through June. This as it took a $16 million hit from currency weakness in some of its main markets, led by Haiti against the dollar. Still, underlying earnings rose 5% on the same period last year, in line with the Digicel's own guidance. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) has announced that it has reached a preliminary agreement to provide Sri Lanka with $2.9 billion over 4 years to help it recover from its worst economic crisis. The arrangement will help restore financial and macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability, as well as enable the country's growth potential. That's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody-Ann Barrett.
The Business Minute.
And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report.
In this evening's health report, we look at breastfeeding.
There's also the issue with fluoride. So your pediatrician clinic will help you as to whether or not the baby needs a supplement. But usually, absolutely nothing needed other than breast milk to completely nourish and satisfy your baby. And let us not forget the bonding that happens when a mother breastfeeds.
That's the health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's Healthy Living tip. Let your baby determine how often and how long to nurse. Get comfortable while nursing. Help your baby find the right position. And don't worry, you'll have enough milk.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Shane Masters. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, have a good afternoon.